Anjali, for giving me this opportunity to be here on a new year. Yeah, it started yesterday only, but even today we can say that it is new year. We are ushering into new year. Uh, Indra Jaising, my good friend, Amita Johari, who is there, Mr. Acharyalu, Toby, and all other who are attending this very important webinar, I would say, on a very, very important topic. As you have said, Anjali, and in the opening remarks, Ms. Indra Jaising also highlighted the fact that the importance of RTI Act and how in the beginning, I mean, it was because of the judgments of the Supreme Court only that this act came into force. And the basis is Article 19, freedom of speech, and Article 21, that is life, right to life and liberty. Uh, Before coming to the topic, and I would like to take a couple of minutes. I want to give it some different dimension to the very basis of this RTI Act. It may be, you may call it in a way conceptually why such a act should be there, or why in our constitutional scheme, or in a democratic country, why this act should be there, and what is the purpose of such an act. So I was just thinking over it, and I wanted to give a different dimension altogether. So let me start from the beginning. Let me begin from the beginning. You see, what is the bedrock of democracy? Because in India, India is a democratic country which is governed by rule of law, and we have a supreme law which is called Constitution of India. But then going even before that, what is the bedrock, as I said, of democracy? That is the social contract. It is based on the theory of social contract, which was initially given to us by Thomas Hobbes, who talked that, look, people want to live in a society, and because it should not be a position. Earlier it was like in I mean, those thousands of years ago, when it's savages and jungle raj, etc., might is right. So we came together, we formed the societies. We wanted that there should be a proper governance when we live together in that society, and therefore that is what is called social contract. But what I'm saying is that the social contract is the creation of the people who have themselves decided to put the power in the hands of few, democratically elected, that they have a right to govern us. But by that, we have not given the power to them for all times to come, because the power still remains with the people. And that is what the constitution also says, and it starts with we the people. And people have elected the persons, people have right to elect. Election keep on taking place after every 5 years. So the people have right to elect one government one day and another government one day, depending. So the choice ultimately lies with the people on the basis of the social contract. And when the social contract, the basic premise is that the liberty and fundamental rights of the people should remain. That is one very, very important. We should be able to, while giving the power to some persons who may govern, day-to-day governance, but then our liberty remains. We should be able to enjoy, all the people, and our fundamental rights. And and everybody, as we know, we want peace. Now, once the power is given to certain authority hereby in the elected form, it is also to be ensured that even when they are elected, it doesn't become what we call despotic power, or they don't I mean, started it should not be fearsome, the person or the authority which is ruling us, for time being ruling in inverted commas in that sense. Now for that purpose, we have given ourselves the constitution, because the and constitution is known as the instrument of governance. So it not only creates the three wings of the state, that is the parliament, that is legislature, I should say, not parliament, because at state it would be state legislature, at center it would be parliament, the executive and the judiciary. but then it is based on checks and balances, and there are powers given to them which they have also to exercise within the framework of the constitution. They cannot overstep their powers and do something which is unconstitutional. That is why any act of the, whether it is the legislature or the executive, can be challenged even before the court of law, and court has been given the power of judicial review to decide whether the action performed by them, by the executive, is right or wrong. Now, this constitution, when I say that we are governed and this checks and balances, this constitution also have its own attributes in every, because when we talk of democracy, we talk of liberal democracy. And this liberal democracy, and when I said that everybody is to confine within the rules which are defined in the constitution, that is also known as limited government. That this government has right to do some acts, but within the limits of the constitution, and that doesn't mean that they have every right to do everything. And so this is called, these attributes of the constitution are known as constitutionalism. And there are two broad attributes we can say. On the one hand, we have it is, although the word given is negative, but sometimes negative word is good, like COVID. When we say that person is tested negative, it is a good news. So here, negative constitutionalism means, as I said, the rights of minorities, liberties, etc., of people, and limited government should, that is the negative. On the other hand, we have the positive attributes of the constitutionalism, which talks of welfare measures, social justice, etc., bringing about a society which is equal society, and to try to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Of course, these are all the ethos, and these are all the principles which are stated in the constitution. So this becomes the two things, or rather the third thing also, which Mr. Acharya had said about the rather the persons from Odisha who are speaking about the rivers, etc., the environment. So three things which come, which can be discerned from all this is, one is that with the positive attributes of constitution, that the social justice to marginalized section of the society, which you also said that, look, when there are so many welfare schemes in a welfare society, and these are meant for public or for poor people, or those who are the beneficiary, or are supposed to be the beneficiary of that, whether it has percolated to them, whether this benefit has been given to them or not, it becomes a very, very important thing. So mere schemes, social welfare and social justice is, when it's to be doing, this should reach them. Other, we said about the good governance, which again you gave that example. And third is environmental issues and the protection of the environment. Now, all these three attributes, which are the attributes of constitutionalism, now you see the connect of these with the RTI, which you have been speaking for last almost 1.5 hours now. So therefore, this is what the RTI seeks to achieve. If we see from this prism, how much important this law becomes, RTI Act, which and what is the purpose of such an act, and only and therefore it is not only for good governance, it is not only for in order to ensure that actually social justice is done to those and they get their benefit, whether it is the pension or whether it is the wages, etc., which examples were given, and whether it is the water, which one lady she said about that. So all that is one part, and other part is that when we say that the executive, which is doing its function, does the function, and the governance is proper governance, and they don't misuse their powers. Because when there are so many welfare schemes, and the it's not only a police state where the state is obliged to only maintain law and order, not that. Today, the function of the state is much larger. As I said, positive constitution, it gives them wide powers also. So much funds at their disposal, how those funds are to be spent, how many, and for the progress of the country, so many projects which are to be undertaken, and those projects which may run into thousands of crores each project. So this gives them very, very wide powers, and that calls for good governance. And in order to ensure whether they are doing or not, the right to information become, and that is when I started with this. It is the people, we the people, the citizens of the country, which are at the bedrock of a democracy, which are the fundamentals to any democracy. They have every right to know what their elected representatives, or I would say not only elected representatives, that is the legislature or the parliamentarians, but even the executive and even the judges, the judiciary, which is the third limb of the state, how they are performing their functions. Because what I feel is all these three limbs of the state are there to serve the people. That they may be doing that when we call that, yes, they are ruling, but no, it is with that comes a responsibility. The spirit has to be that we are serving the people of this country, and whether they are serving properly or not, the right in the to the citizens in the form of right to know becomes very, very important. So that is what I want to say. And it was with this spirit, because I don't know whether anybody has projected the spirit behind this act from this angle, but this is what I thought has to be given, one dimension has to be given to this act. And it is with this spirit the RTI Act was promulgated, and it was, and very rightly all other speakers who have said about it. And if you see the structure of the act also, that what kind of powers which are given to the information commissioners, it is, if I may categorize it, it is investigative powers are there, quasi judicial powers are given to them, even administrative powers are given to them. So much so, even disciplinary powers are given to them. They can order disciplinary action against, etc., against some such erring person. This is the all these powers are given only to ensure that the act works in a proper manner. So when this is the purpose, then the question, and what I would say, that it all, the purpose is to facilitate rule of law and constitutionalism and better governance in this country. Then in this process, and what is defeating this purpose? And you, and Anjali, you very rightly in your opening remarks, you said that, look, act which is made and the provisions which are there in the act, they are really remarkable. And the act is, on papers, is very strong act, but everything depends on its implementation. And here, what we find is that the main problem about implementation is that the many cases which are there, the applications which are filed for seeking information, they are pending. Appeals are pending at first stage or the second stage, which are pending. And the fundamental reason given is, and that is your report, which I also have gone through, a wonderfully, produced report, where you have taken care of all aspects, is that I would say deficiency of or deficits of information commissioners in office. They're not now. They are. It is at, I would say, at two levels. Number one is that even the post, the act says that depending upon how much work is there, so executive can, and that was the what we studied in that case also, the petition which was filed by you, and we had the occasion to decide that petition, where we found that in many states, in order to defeat the purpose, and that is what I was thinking, that what are the tools available with the executive in spite of such a good act, and how they can still suffocate the functioning of the act in so many ways. So one is that power is given to them, it may be from 2 to 10, the persons who can be appointed as information commissioner, and how much strength, sanction strength should be there depending upon how much work is there. So even when the work is more, and we need 6, 7, 8, or even 10, they would, I saw in many states the sanctioned posts were only 2 or 3. Even the posts are not sanctioned. So therefore, that is first. Secondly, even those posts are sanctioned, they are not filled. Vacancies are there, which you have highlighted in your report at length in respect of each states. And third thing which becomes is the process of appointment itself. Now, process of appointments, I should say, and that is what is highlighted and emphasized by others also when it came to diversity. That, and we also commented in that judgment, of course. And now you see, the sometimes the discretionary power which is given to the executive or the government, how that can be manipulated. Now, after all, selection is to be made by the government of these information commissioners. So therefore, and selection committee has to be there. Now, law says when the selection committee interviews the persons and select the people, it is the merit of those persons which is the job of the selection committee. And the courts cannot say no and cannot substitute their judgment and say no, no, X was better, why you have chosen Y, etc. That is not possible. Judicial review is limited whether the proper process was followed or not on the merits of that. So therefore, but then that gives them much discretion. But then I remember hinted, or we rather remarked in that judgment, that why in the selection process you are able to find only, or able to, the one after other selection committees finding only retired government officers only as who are competent. Why not the persons from other areas are, or other disciplines are taken, although the Act says so. So this one may really read into all this, read between the lines and say what is happening. But then you are helpless once they appoint a person, unless you are able to show that no, the appointments of mela fide or the some procedure, etc., was not followed. There's no other way. But this is very limited scope. Then the another problem which you have very rightly mentioned is that the new rules which have come into in 2019, and the way it has been taken away. Now, the terms and condition of the appointment, if there are such, it will not give any, I would say, incentive to a person who is independent, that is, who doesn't belong to the government, etc., to come even apply for such a post. So the task is made easier by having such kind of rules. And insofar as the retired government officers are concerned, they will still apply, because they are happy even with that kind of service condition, because after retirement I am getting 50% of my salary as pension in any case. So I cannot get more than what I was getting as when I was a permanent employee, and even 50% of that is given to me, which takes care of the last drawn salary by me. I would be happy. So more and more those persons would be coming, and therefore merit also sometimes is given a go by in all this process. So therefore this is one thing which is to be examined, and this is what I was thinking, that how, in spite of such rule, such a law, how the executive can still play around and defeat the purpose and have their own say, the manner they want that it should be done. Now, don't sanction the post, don't fill up. Indra Jaising made a very important point, and that was this in our judiciary also. The judgment was given way back in 1994 by the Supreme Court, when the system was it was what we call a collegium system was introduced. And if you see the judgment, it says 6 months before, we know, as she rightly pointed out, when the vacancy is going to arise. So 6 months before the process should start, so that by the time that incumbent who is going to retire, another person is in place. But in spite of that, and in spite of the fact that insofar as judges appointments are concerned, that is with the judges. Of course, after recommendation, it goes to government, and there can be delay at any stage. But then we have seen there are delays on the part of the courts also in recommending the names. But in spite of such judgment, and in spite of having such a procedure, that there are so many vacancies in the judiciary, same thing is happening in CIC. Of course, they cannot be compared. But what I was thinking was another thing, apart from Mr. Acharya, he had mentioned so many, he had given so many suggestions, whether, like the judiciary has taken up the role of appointment of judges because of the independence of judiciary, which is treated as basic feature of the constitution. I mean, that was the basic reason for NJAC judgment also, when they struck down the NJAC Act and the constitutional amendment as well. Why not there should be some independence, not exactly like the judiciary, but why not some independence to this institution be given, in order to ensure that the working is proper? which should relate to, we have UPSC for the appointment of persons in the state, etc., which is a constitutional body under the constitution, UPSC. So why not there should be an independent body for appointment of the information commissioners, which should take care of all this, and not only the how many posts should be there, and on that, why not there should be a criteria that in each state, say, let us fix at least one IC for, say, 400 cases, 500 cases. If the cases are 10,000, so we should have at least then full strength of 10 persons or more. So like that, why not that criteria should be fixed? Why not that the process should be given to the an independent appointing authority, so that some all these aspects are taken care of diversity also, and merit, etc., as well. So these are very, very necessary, and therefore I would say at the end that you are really, and I agree with the suggestions of that the RTI applicant or activists should also be covered by the whistleblower definition of whistleblower. And when another aspect which is need to be stressed, and I would stop with that, is important, and when we are giving importance to this institution, is that here also, when the cases are pending and they are pending for long, in as far as judicial cases are concerned in the court, there is a maxim which is called delay defeats the justice. So therefore, if the justice is given after much delay, then the very purpose of it is, even if the judgment comes in favor, it is defeated. Now you take last two examples which are given: a person, one lady waiting for her pension for 2.5 years, other lady waiting for water for more than 1 year. Now, what is the it is a clear case of defeating the justice, not giving them their due, because their matter is not settled, or not decided by the RTI, and the information is not provided only because the members of the information commissioners, sufficient commissioners, are not there. So therefore, having regard to all this, and COVID cases, the example which was given, in COVID conditions, and the person is to be taken to hospital, etc., and that is information is not there. So why not there should be categorization of the cases, the priorities, that these kinds of categories of cases should be taken up immediately, and even the time can be reduced there. All these kinds of reforms are needed in order to strengthen the enforcement of the act, I would say. And at the end, I again congratulate you people for doing this wonderful work, and keep on doing it. As far as judgments of the courts are concerned, and Mr. Acharya said, you very rightly mentioned that some judgments in the beginning which were given by the courts to facilitate the enactment of the RTI, and thereafter some retrograde judgments have come. Of course, I will not speak much on that, and these can, as he also mentioned, these may be the subject matter of separate discussion altogether. But at the same time, I agree with him. I was only saying on Girish Ramchandra Deshpande judgment, which the circular is issued. He is very right. The circular can be issued only to say that this kind of judgment has come. But thereafter, you cannot say that on the basis of this, if this happens, you don't give it and all that, because it's a quasi judicial function which the information commissioner is discharging, and law is very clear that there cannot be any direction to a quasi judicial authority to decide one way or the other. It amounts to curtailing their discretion. So there can be a challenge to that. There can be a valid reason to challenge that. Of course, ultimately it depends upon the courts as to how they do. But as a retired person, I can now say that yes, this may be a good case. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Justice Sikri. Amrita, if you could please.
And only one thing, I may have to leave early in between because it's already 6:45. I thought it would be. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.